Hello, everyone. Bill Murphy here from the Sports Insanity Network, and welcome to another edition of Murphy's View. Well, today we're going to be talking about episodes 5 and 6 of The Captain. Okay, we have to start this talking about episode 5, which takes place between 2004 and I would say roughly around 2008, maybe 2007. But we have to start by talking about something that I really don't want to talk about, but I have to because it's part of it. Thankfully, it's very short. But before I begin, I want to give a shout out to my very dear friend, Andy Irvin, who is a huge Red Sox fan, and I know he's going to enjoy watching me torture myself talking about this. So, Andy, that is for you, good buddy. That is for you. I hope you enjoy watching me get through this. So without any further ado, here we go. The episode starts with the 2004 American League Championship Series, when the Yankees were up 3-0 against the Red Sox. And then you all know what happens. Game 4, Ortiz, walk-off. Game 5, Ortiz again. Game 6, bloody sock. Game 7, Slaughterfest. We're all sad. So, the Red Sox ended up coming back from a 3-0 deficit and ended up winning this series 4-3. 4 games to 3. And I remember when the Yankees lost games 4 and 5, I remember I was in elementary school, and I think I was talking to somebody, and they said, "Don't worry, Billy. Nobody has ever come back from 3-0. So I think we'll be okay." And look what happened. But anyway, the Yankees take that really hard, and who wouldn't? Like, who wouldn't if you're up 3-0? But Jorge Posada said that whole offseason I just ran it through my head, and I just kept watching the tapes with the Dave Roberts deal. And what really hit Derek Jeter is somebody got a picture of Manny Ramirez at the World Series parade, and it had a sign that said, "Jeter is playing golf today. This is better." Because the Red Sox ended up winning the World Series for the first time in 86 years. Yeah, so we had a sign that said, "Jeter's playing golf today. This is better." And Derek said, "This made me sick to my stomach." So yeah, how do you recover from that? Okay, now, this episode is very different from other episodes of this series thus far. Because in the other episodes, you see, things about Derek. You see a flash forward to the playoff series. And, stuff here and there. This is different because, starting in the previous episode, that was the beginning of the post-dynasty era of the Yankees. How you had, that dynasty, 96, 98, 99, 2000. This was the beginning of the post-dynasty era. And in, from 2004 to 2008 was a pretty dark time. Not as dark as, say, from 1965 to 1975 or 1982 to 1995. But it was a pretty dark era. So they don't really go into, the playoff series aside from the Boston series. The other series between those 2 years, they just breeze right past them. But this episode talks about how Derek Jeter handled the New York media. And listen, to anyone who does not live in New York, the media here is brutal. And it shows you how well he handled it. How he would just keep his answers short, and just say, hey, I didn't see that, or hey, we got to try to win. He said, yeah, I didn't want them to get a quote out of me because that was the point. I didn't want them to get a quote out of me. But then, it brings up other people who were talking about it, such as, a special guest appearance by Eli Manning of the New York Football Giants, 2-time Super Bowl champion and 2-time Super Bowl MVP, am I right? Eli and Jeter, this is like a New York sports Marvel movie for me. It really is. Okay, all that aside, but I know Eli had a pretty good quote, because when you have a good game, they'll praise you. Okay, I'm paraphrasing. When they have a good game, they'll praise you. When you have a bad game, they'll rip you apart. And that's true. And, and Jeter talks about what the media really does. Like, how they always ask him, how's your personal life going? How's your dating life going? And he goes, you don't ask Bernie what he does with him and his wife. You don't ask Pettit or Posada about what they had for dinner last night. Why do you always ask me? It kind of gets to the pressures of fame a little bit. And, there was also a story that was published in the New York Post about how Jeter was having one-night stands with various women. And after that, he would give them memorabilia and send them a ride and wish them away. And that was in the New York Post. He read the article, but they also said the story was never really published. But anyway, everybody started laughing about that. And he goes, it's not true. I don't do that. And they had the woman who was like the publisher of that article is basically saying like, oh, I didn't mean any ill will. It was just good fun. Those weren't my intentions. And then Derek Jeter has a great response. He goes, then I would like you to write an article. He goes, tell her I'd like her to write an article about what her intentions were. So, yeah, that is the downside to being a star here. To being one of the biggest names in New York sports is you got to deal with the press. You got to deal with the media. And they're not always going to be kind to you. But he had a way of handling them. He didn't let them get their quotes, which I thought was brilliant. And then it also talks about how kind of the fusion of sports, race, and politics, which we have been seeing over the last couple of years, and this was kind of interesting. I found this very interesting. Like, from Derek's time at the Yankees, there were a lot of incidents with the African-American community and police, like there is today. And, how cops would get away with things. And Jeter wouldn't answer that because they wouldn't ask him. Because they were saying, hey, when we're in the clubhouse, we talk baseball. We don't talk politics. We don't talk about race. We don't talk about religion. We keep that stuff out of here. And a journalist, her name escapes me right now, but she was from one of the Chicago papers. Very smart lady. I'm really sorry if you're watching, madam. I'm really sorry I can't remember your name right now, but I think what you had to say was very insightful. And, yeah, and she was saying that, because a lot of players don't like to weigh in on those topics because a lot of those players don't like to weigh in on those type of topics because if their editors see it, they can get angry, and a lot of their readers or a lot of their fans could be white, and how Major League Baseball fans is majority white, and that could turn people off from someone. As Jeter said, I don't talk about those social issues because people can turn against you. And like I said, there was kind of a wall between sports and politics. And there was someone who was like the Yankee PR person in like the 70s who was interviewed, and he said, we never had a policy against people voicing their opinions on certain issues. But they knew to not really say anything because of the image of the Yankees. And they also talked about an incident in which Gary Sheffield, who was in an interview one time, who said when he was with the Yankees, he said he thought black players were unfairly treated. And the interviewer said, the Yankees' most prominent player is black. Go, who? Derek Jeter going, he's half black. Oh, yeah, he's half black, half white. And then they say, well, and Sheffield said, well, he's not full black. And how that caused, how that really caused disturbance. But Sheffield did reach out to Jeter and said, I didn't really mean any ill will. I just say because he's not really brought up in the conversation of race. And yeah, so I'm going to ask you to watch that part because there are people there who are just smarter than me in that department. But what they all had to say was very brilliant and was very insightful and very interesting, and I highly recommend you watch that. And now we are in the next episode. Episode 6, this covers from 2009 to 2014. So, okay, both of these episodes kind of tie in together. Because this is like around the time, 2008, 2009, when Jeter starts slowing down. These years that these two episodes cover, like 2008 to the end of the career, Jeter starts slowing down, and a lot of people start to say, well, he's overrated. Well, okay, we start in 2009, new home for the Yankees and some new faces. That was when Hal and Hank Steinbrenner, because George Steinbrenner was getting old and pretty ill at this time, Hal and Hank Steinbrenner were starting to make some moves. They ended up getting CeCe Sabathia, and they ended up getting Mark Teixeira and AJ Burnett for the 2009 season. And I remember this. Like, when they got these players, I was doing backflips. I was so happy to see Sabathia. I was so happy to see Burnett. I was so happy to see Teixeira. I was doing backflips. I do one for you, but then I throw my back out, and then I end up in the hospital. And you folks don't want that, do you? But anyway. So, it then shows in the 2009 season that Jeter just let the new guys be themselves. And for the first time in nine years, the Yankees win another World Series against the Phillies. Oh boy, do I remember that series, folks. It was amazing. The playoff series, it was great. And watching the Yankees win another World Series, I remember going to school that day. I was probably the happiest person in that school. I was walking around with the biggest smile on my face. Because, like the other World Series, I was pretty young and kind of got a grasp of what was going on, but not really. But this was the one I was, like, fully invested in. And the Yankees were back on top. And it was a brilliant feeling. It was a glorious feeling. So then, and then we get to something that's a little unsavory. 2010, George Steinbrenner passes away. May he rest in peace. And then, I have said this. I was actually having this conversation with Danny Boy Reginald, actually. It's kind of, once you think about it, after Steinbrenner passed away, or when he was old and sick, Brian Cashman was kind of running the show. Once you think about it, it's kind of true. So 2010 comes. Jeter's contract is up, and he wants to negotiate a new one. And Derek Jeter says, listen, I don't care about the money. Can we just keep this private? I want to stay here. But somehow it got out into the public, and Jeter and Cashman were basically, at this point, they were at war. They were basically at war at this point. And Cashman, at one of the meetings, it got ugly. Derek Jeter, his agent, Brian Cashman in the front office sat down and they offered him $45 million for 3 years. And he was going, well, you don't deserve a bigger contract because you don't do this, you don't do this, you don't do that. And then Derek Jeter goes, who else would you want? And Brian Cashman's interview going, I try not to answer those questions, but I did since he was trying to get an answer out of me. Who else can you get? He goes, well, Troy Tulowitzki looks good, maybe Hanley Ramirez. Because Cashman goes, well, at that time, those were the top two shortstops in the game, and, Derek Jeter wasn't really in the top shelf anymore. And he basically told Derek Jeter, if you don't like our offer, shop around. Which, in other words, means take it or leave it, or go somewhere else. And it was basically the brief time that Derek Jeter was a free agent. And then finally the two sides settled. And their deal was 3 years and $51 million. But that negotiation kind of soured Derek Jeter and Brian Cashman's relationship. And he said, I didn't want to talk to Cashman after that. I have nothing to, I'll never say anything bad about him, but I did not want to talk to him after that. And so, in my humble opinion in that episode, in that incident, I could see what Cashman was thinking. Derek's getting up there, and do you really want to spend all this money? But on the other hand, this is the face of your franchise. This is the face of your franchise. Derek Jeter, the freaking captain of the Yankees, is the face of your franchise. And you don't want to see him walk. So that was a stupid move on Cashman's part, but Derek Jeter isn't all innocent either. They said he was having an ego problem. Maybe a little, but, at the end of the day, you had to keep the recognizable face of the franchise in your franchise. So, talks about 2011. And when he got hit number 3,000. And when he went 5 for 5 in that game. And I remember that game. I was at my brother's baseball tournament. Me and my family were going somewhere to get some lunch somewhere. And we had the radio on. And when he did it, one of the coaches who we became good friends with and his family, they're fantastic people, big Yankee fan too, so as you can see, we became good buddies. He texted my dad, Derek just got 3,000. He went 5 for 5 in that game. And I remember that. And I remember seeing the highlight when Derek Jeter hit it, and Michael Kay goes, history with an exclamation point! Okay, I know some people have their opinions about Michael Kay. Some people like him. Some people can't stand him. To me, he's a mixed bag. Shout out to you, JT Mahoney. Mixed bag. But anyway, Jeter gets 3,000, and it is great. And you know what I always admired him about that season with the 3,000th hit? He was named one of Barbara Walters' top 10 most fascinating people that year. And this is why I will always, always, always respect Derek Jeter. And that is, he said, even though I got 3,000, that season was still a failure. And Barbara Walters goes, why? Because we didn't win the World Series. And this is something that I will always admire about Derek Jeter, because it's not about me, it's about us. We are a team. And that's what I will always respect about him. And, okay, so also, now we go to the 2012 season, and we start meeting the new special lady in Mr. Jeter's life. And that is model Hannah Davis. They met in 2010, 2011, and they ended up getting together in 2012, and when they ended up getting together, they kept their relationship pretty quiet. And, Derek Jeter has had relationships. I know he dated, Miss Universes. At one point, he was dating Mariah Carey. But he kept this relationship pretty quiet. And, because, like he always said, I don't want distractions. And, again, something I can respect. Because I didn't know they were together until after he retired. I didn't know they were together until after he retired. So, there we go with that. So, the 2012 season, Derek Jeter, he is the toughest player in baseball. He played through injuries. Like when we talked about him flying into the stands. And even though he was hurt, he still kept playing. But then in 2012, we start seeing that our beloved captain is sadly mortal. When Game 1 of the 2012 ALCS, he broke his ankle during the game and was out for the postseason. And that was really starting to show. I think when that happened, that really hit me. How much fuel does this guy have left in the tank, Is he going to be playing in the foreseeable future, or maybe is he done? But, yeah, so we go to a funny story. When that happened, everybody was freaking out, and Susan Waldman was telling the story about how after that happened, she ran down to Dorothy Jeter, Derek's mom, and says, and is crying. It's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry that happened. And Mrs. Jeter, she seems very quiet when they interview her, but she seems like a bit of a badass when she says, no, stop crying right now. Everything's fine. Thank you for your concern. Now go back on the radio, and I want to hear a smile in your voice. Everything's fine. Okay. But Dorothy Jeter, if you are watching this, God bless you. God bless you. But anyway, so he's out for the postseason. Then 2013, he's pretty much out for the season because he only played for like a whole 10 minutes. Not literally, but then he got shut down in 2013. And this gets to the point when it's, 2012, 2013, as long, 2012, 2013, this gets to the point when, Jeter is the only member of the core four left. Posada, he retired after the 2011 season, saying that his contract was up and the Yankees pretty much said, yeah, we're not bringing you back. Mariano and Pettit both retired after the 2013 season, even though he's not part of the core four. Bernie Williams, after his contract expired in 2005, he wanted to come back in 2006, but the Yankees didn't want to bring him back. And he said it perfectly. As long as you produce, when you don't produce, there is no loyalty when you're older. Like, they will literally hang you out to dry. And okay, now people want to know why isn't Bernie considered part of the core four? Because he wasn't there for that last World Series in 2009. So that's not why he's not considered part of the core four. It took me a while to figure that out, but I figured it out. I feel smart. And, this is when Derek starts to think about life after baseball. He said, I told myself, if it ever felt like a job, I'm done. And you know what? I can respect that, because as Mark Twain said, if you treat your vocation like a vacation, you'll never work a day in your life. So at this point, a dream that he had since he was a kid now felt like a job, and he's like, you know what? I'm done. And okay, what I found really hilarious is that he called Susan Waldman, because Susan Waldman talked about when Bernie retired and she was interviewing him, and he said to Derek Jeter, and Derek Jeter said to Susan Waldman, when I retire, Susan, you'll be the first one to know. And you know what? Here's again where I will stand up and applaud him. He kept that promise. He called Susan, and she goes, I was outside playing with my dog. and I didn't get into my phone. And it was Derek Jeter. He left a voicemail that said, hey, Susan, I said you'd be the first to know. I'm retiring. And he put a post on his Facebook page. I remember the day when Derek Jeter announced he was retiring. I had gotten home. I was going to community college at the time. I'd gotten home. I was sick as a dog. I came home early. I had a very nasty cold. And I remember I was just up in my room, TV on, and I was watching TV, and then I got a text. I want to say it was from Lawrence Patchman Lang. It was in our group chat saying that, hey, Derek Jeter's retiring. I'm like, what? And then I turn on Michael Kay when, because he has a simulcast on Yes, so I turn on Michael Kay, and they're like, no, this is happening. This is freaking happening. And, so So this episode shows the start of the 2014 season in his last season as the Yankees. So what I've gotten from this episode is, that he was in the twilight of his career. And, the next episode we're probably going to see the final game, which I will talk about more when we get to that episode, and his life now. So what I thought about these 2 episodes were kind of interesting because they were getting more into the personal part of Derek Jeter, which they do in the series, but they get more into the personal part because, like I said, in the episode 5 from 2004 to 2008, the Yankees were sucking, and they would talk about his relationship with the media, which I thought was interesting. And then in this episode, they were talking about, like, going back to the games, like the 2009 World Series, the 3,000th hit, but also the spat with Brian Cashman, which I don't really remembered until I watched this. And, just into his mentality, I was thinking, you know what? I'm done. And how everybody was saying there's no loyalty when you're older. As soon as you can't produce, bye-bye. So, yeah, the next episode is going to be the last one, and I'm kind of sad because I enjoyed doing these vlogs for you. But, you know what? All good things got to come to an end. And I'll have vlogs on exciting things after that, I promise. So you're going to get some good stuff coming from me. And if you enjoyed this, and why wouldn't you, because isn't this content amazing? Go to www.thesportsinsανitynetwork.com. Check out our blogs, our history, all the podcasts such as Wishbone Shotgun, Breakaway Bandits, The Face Turn, and, of course, the one that started it all, the 19th hole, and the one that started it all, the granddaddy, the Sports Insanity Podcast. And also, here on our YouTube channel, like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell. Thank you very much, guys. Stay safe and take care.